If you're bored, you can bet we're floored. If you couldn't care less, then we couldn't care more. It's the Clearly Show. If you get confused, man, we can help you with a little bit of life and a little bit of a grammatical, historical hermeneutic in our approach to studying the scriptures. It's the Clearly Podcast. Clearly, God has the Clearly Podcast for you.
Wow, we got a theme song now.
Oh, that felt good to get out of my system.
And
been sitting on that one since Christmas.
What was that accent there at the end, huh?
I feel like people take you more seriously when you are British. So
that was a British accent.
I resent that suggestion. This season, I think I'm just going to lean into that a lot more.
Well, we're back for season 2, and we're really excited about what is in store this season, and a little bit intimidated as we got into it. It's like, oh man, we do with some tough topics, which is very much our favorite thing to do. But yeah.
It's true. We are getting into the book of 1 Timothy. Yay, 1 Timothy!
1 Timothy.
And the way, if you've been with us in season 1, you know this is how it works. We grab a book of the Bible, and that's sort of our controlling guide for the whole season. And as we go, we study it, and when we bump into tough stuff or tricky stuff or confusing stuff or seemingly boring stuff or offensive stuff, we stop and we take a gander, and we typically make a whole episode out of that stuff. And guess what? 1 Timothy is just a gold mine for all those things.
You thought it was maybe only your Old Testament, but actually the New Testament has quite a few things in it that rub people the wrong way.
Yep.
And so we're going to go there.
Come on, complementarity. Come on, homosexuality. Come on, topics about slavery. Come on, gender issues. Come on, the church and how it works and eldership. And is it male or is it male and female? And come on, let's get into all that. Doesn't that make you happy?
Gosh.
Makes me happy.
Actually, I think it's really important. We've said this before, but the reason we do this is because the culture's talking about those topics, and people who are opponents to the faith, to Christianity, are going to these topics. Yeah. They're going to these passages, and they're confronting us with them. And so if we don't have some sense of competency around how to talk about these issues, how to understand what Paul meant when he's writing to Timothy, who's a pastor in this city, very much like our own, like, we don't know how to deal with that and wrestle with those things ourselves, and we're not going to be able to have the conversations with the culture that's, critiquing our faith in those ways.
And we want to equip you for that. We want to get equipped along the way.
That's right.
Come along, friends, for the Clearly Podcast for you and you. Okay, everybody, here we are, 1 Timothy, and I couldn't be more excited. If I was more excited, my face would catch on fire. That is...
I've never seen your face spontaneously combust.
Because I've never been that excited. I'm
at you're never that excited,
right
I guess,
now.
If that's what happens.
We are in 1 Timothy. My first exposure to any Bible study ever was one of the Timothys. It was 2 Timothy. So me and the Timothys have a special
So when
bond.
you see Timothy in heaven, you're going to have a moment with him.
That's right. When I see 1 Timothy and when I see 2 Timothy, I'm just going to just give them both a big hug.
You're not going to clarify that for the person who's not familiar with the scriptures?
Someone's already got off the podcast at this point thinking I'm a joker, so it's fine. But we're glad you're joining us, and we want to. This episode is to kind of orient us around the season and the controlling sort of pathway that we're taking this season, and that is the book of 1 Timothy. We're going to sort of let it be our North Star as we're going through these all these episodes this season, and that's what we did last season too.
Yep. And can I say one thing about why I like that we do that?
Yeah.
Is it forces us to deal with topics that we otherwise would likely avoid. And if you listened to last season, you know that because we were in Joel and Malachi, which deal with all sorts of uncomfortable things. And going through books of the Bible and God's Word help us to come across things that just uncomfortable, but that we need to engage with.
That's right. Expository preaching and teaching, it just makes you bump up against all the best and worst things, and we love it.
Yep.
So we do this to ourselves here. And we're glad that you're with us. So we're talking about
1 Timothy.
We're at the 30,000 foot. We're in an airplane looking down and going, what is this thing? What is this book? Maybe you haven't dug into it very deeply before. Maybe you have, and you need a refresher course on the book. So let's talk about the who, the what, the where, the why. This book. So first off, Kelly, give me a sense of what. The who's of this book. Who are the players? What's happening?
There's two big ones. Paul.
I bet I can guess the second one. 1 Timothy.
Paul in the first. No,
That's
there's
right.
only one Timothy. If you're confused, the Bible is only one Timothy. Okay, Paul and Timothy. And Paul is writing the letter, so he is the author of the book. Timothy is the recipient. So this book was written to an individual. Timothy is a pastor in the city of Ephesus, and Paul is his father in the faith. These two men traveled together, did life together, and currently are not, because Paul's writing a letter to him, meaning they're not together.
That? Observing the text, people.
So
and to give like some of the timeline here. So this is most historians think this is after Paul's first imprisonment in Rome, likely. So he's out of house arrest here, and it's kind of in between his two big imprisonment moments. So this would have been somewhere like between like AD 62, and we know that he died around AD 68 to AD 67. So this is probably right in the mid 60s. Hendrix is doing his thing at this time. It's Woodstock is.
Oh my gosh!
No?
I was like, "What are you talking about?"
My bad, guys. These notes are.
I was like, I know you're in seminary,
did the wrong.
But I don't remember.
What kind of Bible is this? Anyways,
okay.
So he's writing around AD 65 for this letter right here to Timothy.
So that's kind of the main things going on, but. I know, Jimmy, this book has been really impactful for you personally. I've heard you talk about it a few times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that was
huge.
something that was interesting to me when we were discussing potential books. So tell us why this book's important to you.
Well, this book is the reason I'm in ministry in a lot of ways. For those of you who don't know, besides like my music career and that sort of slice of my life, I'm a pastor at a church on the south side of Dallas called Stonegate Church. What up, Stonegate? And I'm there largely because while I was there as just a member, me and a group of guys got together and I started taking them through 1 Timothy. I was wanting to study it more, so I grabbed some guys and we started going through it together. And in the process of that, I'm just bumping up against like all this just thick theology about the church, especially. And here's what happened to me. I'm studying 1 Timothy with these guys, and I'm realizing, in God's playbook, the main way He's getting the ball down the court is through the local church. Mm-hmm. That Jesus lived, died, rose again, ascended, sent His Spirit, filled His people, and now His people are the literal hands and feet of Jesus on earth, doing His work so that God is glorified on the earth. And I want to be where the action is. And I just remember feeling that. I'm like, my whole life has been touring and traveling city to city, going church to church, and we've loved the local church. But in terms of like settling down, running along with one group of people, like really digging in deep, and it was hard to do because we were always touring, and so it shifted my whole world to go, okay, the local church is kind of everything.
Yeah, which
is not, maybe you're listening to this and you're like kind of. I know a lot of folks that I run with struggle with like the whole church thing, especially as you kind of go younger on the spectrum. There is like this sense of like, is that a thing that matters anymore? Like, can I just like run like the individual game and do that? It's like, no, this book is going to just burst that balloon in a lot of ways, and confront us with the fact that no, we need we need each other and the church. I love this verse that shows up in 1 Timothy chapter 3. Paul's kind of given a sense of what he's up to in this letter with Timothy, and he says this: I write so that you will know how one ought to conduct himself in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and support of the truth. Mm-hmm. Verse 15, I remember reading that and going, oh my goodness, this is the household of God we're talking about here. This is the pillar and support of the truth. You want truth to like maintain its integrity and be solid. You want it to be supported. The church is the means by which that's accomplished. So anyways, kind of a big deal, y'all.
It is. And I think it's neat that that's part of your story. You've always loved the local church, but as far as your vocation, you were committed to touring.
That's
like
true.
When we were early married, I'd be like, when you're not touring, when you're not traveling, and we do this, that, or the other, you'd be like, what do you mean? When I'm not touring. So I was fully convinced that would be our life forever. Mm-hmm. And then for you to move into a position of, I'm going to slow that down and throw all of my energy here. I saw a big transformation in you.
That's right.
And all those people who are Jimmy Needham fans out there who are sad that he has not made as much music lately, you have the book of 1 Timothy to blame.
Dang.
So, no.
Dang.
But that is true.
Yeah.
You were putting out a lot of music and then the Lord brought your energy there. It's Paul's fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Lord's fault. Because he wrote through Paul. So don't be mad at the Lord.
Okay, bibliology.
Anyway.
I hear you. Let's get there.
But I have seen that transform your life. And even though some of you listening to this podcast may just know us through the small little public branch of our ministries, the people listening who do life with us at our local church know our first energy goes there because we both really do believe that is God's first and foremost means of furthering the kingdom. And we want to be about that. And we hope you want to be about that too. And so that's one huge reason we're excited for this book.
That's right. So one of the whys to this is the church. Mm-hmm. We want to give you a vision of, through God's word, the importance of the local church and its role in your life and in the advancement of the gospel. One of the other things that we see is really important is just the cultural piece of this. You mentioned a second ago, but like this is written to the New York City of cities. This is written to a
Asia
pastor
Minor.
in Ephesus, which was like the place, man. We were just there.
We were, just last summer, we got to visit Ephesus.
Huge. It is so
Which
big.
was so amazing. And as we made our way through the city and we're with, a guide who's kind of explaining the ruins that we're seeing, what these were, I'm like, this is an ancient shopping mall, like we're walking down this thing. He's like, there would have been shops here. And then we walk into this wealthy neighborhood of like these 6 huge excavated houses that are just seriously massive, and going, I can't believe they could make things like that. It had indoor plumbing. So this is a wealthy city, a center of trade. There's a huge library. People wanted knowledge and information.
LED walls. These guys had no Apple TV.
No,
it was crazy.
But they would have if it was now. But I'm just saying, the more that we were there and walked around, the more we had a sense of, this is our culture. It's hard to relate sometimes to ancient cultures when you think about it, but when you're there, it's the same problems and the same kind of things are going on there.
Yeah, this is a city with a lot of wealth, a lot of competency, a lot of knowledge, materialism. It's the center of trade. It's like a port city. My mom was born 15 minutes outside of Ephesus. Hashtag
that is true.
Facts.
I feel like I have to say that's true because sometimes.
Because sometimes what, Kelly? Finish the sentence.
Sometimes
No, just
you
finish the
say that
sentence, Kelly.
Hendrix was alive at the same time as the Apostle
Maybe
Paul.
I just misunderstood it. Maybe I just...
Okay. But his mom was born
and we're back.
Very, very close.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. So we're getting to what we're saying is 1 Timothy is kind of getting us listening to Paul speaking to a pastor who's trying to deal with a context that in a lot of ways isn't like ours, but in a lot of ways is. It's they're dealing with sin struggles that look a lot like our sin struggles. They're dealing with issues related to, they're dealing with a lot of things like gender issues. I mean, it's a good thing our culture's not dealing with any of that, you know?
Right.
So
dealing with wealth and
that's right.
And poverty, both extremes. And how do you handle that? So it's...
How does the local church care for those in need? All of those things.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is it matters on that level.
Yeah,
too.
I think there's a lot to relate to in this book, which might surprise you because sometimes I think people read 1 Timothy and feel a little bit like, I just want to turn away from this book because there's some also really uncomfortable things in this book of the scriptures. So.
Yes, which typically we try to avoid that here on Clearly. If it's complex, controversial, or confusing for us, it's no? Okay. That is actually one of the other reasons. Kelly pitched this to me when we were...
I did. I pitched this book,
is,
so blame me.
Blame her, yeah. But she was like, hey, it gets us dealing with like all these crazy things. Isn't that great? We got to talk about slavery and homosexuality. And I'm like, who did I marry? Why are these the things that, okay. But it does. It exposes us to all kinds of things.
It does. And here's why that matters, I think. Because people are already pointing those things out in the scriptures as a reason to deny the scriptures and to look at them and say, this is why this book is antiquated and old, or this is why you can't trust the writings in the New Testament or the Old. So people are already dealing with these topics, pointing to them. And so if we avoid them too, one, that's just unhelpful. And two, we don't learn to grow in any type of competency about how to talk about those things and not like ignore or downplay the scriptures and do things like, oh, yeah, he didn't really mean that. No, he did mean it, but we need to talk about
in what way he meant it and what was the context and all of those things.
It's just good training to study these things and not walk away from them. Some people are already talking about it. That's why we should talk about it too. So
that's right. So every time as we're going, we're going to work through this book like you would do a Bible study, but as we hit a moment where it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, or that's a buzzword, or that feels like it's grating against sort of my cultural understanding of X or Y, we're just going to pull the car over, and probably the next episode will just be a deep dive into that subject. So that's going to be sort of the flow of the season, which is a lot like how we handled last season. So if you hated last season, you're going to hate this. But if you liked it, I think this will be great.
Yeah. So Jimmy, you and I will get some good practice in like not caring what other people think, right? If we get some angry emails.
You'll get good practice at that. I already don't care what
you are. That is true. You already don't care very much. So there are some difficult things that Paul's going to say in this book, honestly. And especially for me as a woman, there's some really interesting and hard things.
Hit us, Kel. What do we got? Come on, Kel.
Well, I'm not going to get into it now.
Oh, actually, you have to be silent.
Oh my gosh, you went there.
Let me, your federal head, read this aloud.
Oh my gosh.
If you could cover your head real quick, we will.
Are you really trying to find it right now?
You,
okay, I was like, what's happening? There are some really challenging things that he says about women and to women, and so he says some really challenging things. But here's what I was going to say before I was derailed by the man sitting beside me. In the very beginning of this book, this is 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. He says this, the aim of our charge is this. He's about to say something. So in all these things, the charge he's about to give, the things that are hard in this book that we're going to deal with, he says this, the aim of our charge is love. That is Paul's aim. Love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. And so as we get into really hard things, that's good to remember that the aim is love. And so
yeah, that's right.
We can understand everything we're hearing, that's where Paul is trying to move us toward.
Yeah, this is not controversy for controversy's sake. This is far from it. He's wanting to produce something in the lives of the people of God in Ephesus. And God, through this book, is wanting to produce something in our lives too. You know, all of the commands, all of the vision for how life ought to work that's detailed here is for us as well, and is just as relevant for us. And it's meant to produce in us things like love from a pure heart and clean conscience and sincere faith. All those things are meant to blossom as we embrace this. So I'm hoping, I know this is your hope too, that we that as you come up against stuff that just feels like it so grates against your vision of how life ought to be, how gender roles ought to be, how just all the things, that we would have 1 Timothy 1:5 in mind in a lot of ways of like, okay, I need to see how this is working for my a more sincere faith in me, a deeper love for God and people in me. I need to be on the lookout for how this is supposed to produce a clean conscience in me. And I think if we come at it like that, it's going to produce a lot more fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good question to ask as you're reading this book along with us, coming up against things that feel confusing or frustrating. To go, how is this moving us toward love? And just to ponder that and ask yourself that question, because Paul says in the beginning of this letter, that's the aim of the charge he's giving. So
that's right.
Yep.
So if that feels like something you're into, crew, then stick around. And if that grosses you out, then this is your time to turn off the podcast. I'll give you a second. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here.
But you have sometimes said you're aiming to not have listeners, or if you've made jokes about that before, I must not want anybody to listen to this podcast.
No, I want you to listen. I want to be friends with you. I don't have time.
But we're excited to dig into it together, and so
stick around for next episode. We're getting into the first 11 verses of 1 Timothy. So if you want, go ahead, read ahead, get your idea, get mad about some stuff, show up, and then we'll gather to talk about it and deal with the drama. Yeah?
Deal with the drama together.
Come on!
High five.
You're feeling it. Down to your last $5, 2 smokes, you got big dreams. You're just an ambitious proletariat, questioning.
Thanks for joining us for this episode, getting into 1 Timothy. I hope you're excited about the book. I'd encourage you to read along with us. It's not a very long book of the Bible, so get it out. Maybe get a pen, get some questions, underline some things, write your questions down. We're going to cover the entire book in this season, and so I'd encourage you to be reading along with us as we go along. And remember that we film all these episodes in front of a live audience through Zoom. So you can, if you're interested in that for this season, you can go to patreon.com/Jimmy Kelly Needham, and you will be able to find us there, join our live audience.
Next time, join us. We're going to walk you step by step through how to treat a slab leak in a foundation on a first floor of a building. I'm really excited about that. So put on your thinking caps, kids.
Oh, man.